Good evening, friends. My name is Wendy Kane, and let me tell you a few things about myself. I am the coordinator for Bucks Quarter, and I am a member of Newtown Friends Meeting, which is also in Bucks Quarter. So I've served as Bucks Quarter coordinator for about 6 years now. I've also held various positions at the yearly meeting, both paid and volunteer. But at Newtown meeting, I was the clerk of our In-Reach Outreach Committee for many, many years. And part of my role as coordinator for Bucks is to promote Bucks Quakers. So today, we're going to spend about an hour together, and we're going to talk about some basic and practical ways that your meeting can do outreach. So I've divided this workshop into 4 sections with time for questions after each section. So the first part will be about introspection or looking inward. Are we ready to do outreach? That will be followed by planning or looking outward. Who would you like to attract to your meeting? The third section will be about creating or designing your outreach materials. And the last section will be implementing your outreach plan or getting the word out into the world. So it's helpful if you can jot down questions as I go along. So I hope you have a pen and paper ready. So hopefully at the end, there'll also be time for some follow-up questions, and we can talk about what further information you might want so that we can plan more workshops, as Lonza has already outlined, and offer you some really good practical information. So let's get started. Introspection, looking inward. So we know that the membership in Philadelphia Yearly Meeting is both dwindling and aging. So we may have less energy, and we may be even less physically capable of volunteering like we did when we were younger. And because there are fewer of us to do the work, we're getting burnt out by the amount of time we're being asked to give to our meetings. And with fewer members, donations are also dwindling. So not only are there fewer people to do the work, but there's also less money coming in to keep our old meeting houses in good repair. So I hear repeatedly, we need to attract more young families. How can we do that? The answer, of course, is outreach. We need to find a way to get the word out to our local communities that these are not just historic buildings, but they're vibrant and active places of worship, filled with spirit, filled with joy, ready to offer a warm and welcoming community. So the next question is, well, how do we do that? Well, rather than trying to do things willy-nilly like, oh, let's have a concert, or oh, let's have a book discussion, or oh, I know we can have an open house next week, I recommend that your meeting community take some time as a community to ponder the following queries. Why do you want to attract people to your meeting? Now, I know this sounds kind of counterintuitive. Of course, we want to attract more people. We only have 6 people coming to our meeting, and we only have 6 members. And if we don't get more, we're going to have to lay the meeting down. But is your meeting open to new and different people who may have different ideas about how to do things? Now, I'm not talking about changing the basic tenets of Quakerism, unprogrammed worship, seeing the light in each of us, and following our testimonies that are outlined in Faith and Practice. No, what I'm talking about are things like if a new member suggests maybe a different committee structure, or suggests that if we can't find a volunteer, that we might want to pay someone to maintain our website. These new ways of thinking are often met with, well, we can't do it that way because we've always done it this way. From longtime members, this is what I hear over and over. So it's like they're suggesting that Quakers can't change and adapt to new situations. But of course, we can, and we have. We've always adapted. We no longer wear Quaker gray. We have music in our meeting houses. We have a piano at Newtown. Heck, we have cameras and screens for hybrid meetings. We're free to marry outside the faith without being read at a meeting. And we can play cards and we can dance. So, this is why we've been around for 350 years. Change and growth makes us stronger. And we should remember that before we automatically say, we've always done it this way. Number 2, what are your values? And what's the personality of your meeting? So it's a good exercise for a meeting community to gather, say over a potluck supper, to talk about what Quaker values your meeting really embraces. You might be a meeting with a super active Peace and Justice Committee, and you schedule letter writing campaigns and organize and attend peaceful protests. You could be interested in climate justice, and your property committee is committed to reducing your carbon footprint. You might have a school associated with your meeting, and you know the value of a Quaker education. Discern what your meeting is passionate about. This will give you a direction for your outreach efforts and attract visitors that match your personality. So 3, what does your meeting do well that you want to share? So I'm going to give you an example. Falsington meeting in Bucks Quarter is really good at singing. They even have a singing committee. They sing a selection of hymns at the Rise of Me, each meeting for worship, and a small group even gets together to practice each month so that there can be instrumental accompaniment and harmony when they sing their hymns. They love to share their love of music. So as outreach, they organized a social justice singer-songwriter series, and they advertised it to the public. And they've recently added sing-alongs that we've promoted just throughout the quarter. They realize that this is one of their strengths, and they're using it to attract visitors to their meeting. And 4, what work needs to be done to make your community more welcoming? Now, this is going to be another whole workshop, but just as an overview, imagine if you walked into an unfamiliar place of worship for the first time, maybe a mosque, a synagogue. How would you feel if there wasn't a friendly face at the door showing you where to go? So look around your meeting houses, inside and out, and try to picture it with the eyes of a newcomer. Picture yourself walking, driving onto the property for the first time. Would you know where to park? Which door do I go in? Once I'm in, where do I go? Heck, where are the bathrooms? Who can I ask for help? So before you decide to make an outreach plan, think about if there are ways that you can make your meeting more welcoming, especially to first-time visitors. A community that is welcoming is a community that people will return to. So now you've decided that your meeting wants to, and in fact needs to do outreach. You need to make an outreach plan. First is try to identify an outreach team. So if your meeting doesn't have an outreach committee, it's a good idea to start with an ad hoc committee. I know that's what we did at Newtown. And then over time, see if there's enough energy to continue it as a formal committee. Now, it doesn't have to be large. 3 people's probably enough to start with. Sometimes too large can be a little bulky. And if you need more people to fulfill the plans, that's when you tap the meeting community when the time comes. Remember, this is a committee for people with energy, people who are outgoing and like to talk to people. It's not for the shy and demure. And it helps if at least one person has good writing skills. And score if you find someone with graphic design, website, or social media experience. But first and foremost, friends on outreach must be friendly and knowledgeable about your meeting. Next, determine your target audience. How wide of a net do you want to cast? Are you looking for anyone seeking a new spiritual home, or are you looking for more families? So many of us are looking for families. Are you looking for people to help you with your social justice work? Or do you just want to get the word out to your surrounding area that there are Quakers who are alive and well in their local communities? So, by determining your target audience, you can send a directed message to the demographic you hope to attract. And then set goals and objectives. So, by having clear goals, you can assure that your outreach efforts are focused where you want them. For example, when Bucks Quarter needed to update their website in 2020, I set 4 simple goals and made sure that every decision about the website were measured against those goals. So these are just what we used. You can use them as a springboard if you want. So the first thing was to empower seekers to visit us in person. Now that meant that the website should pique the interest of visitors, making them curious enough to take the next step and visit a Quaker meeting in person. Communicate that we are an active, supportive, and vibrant community. This is why we have a calendar of events that I keep up to date. And we have my favorite page, which is called Stories of Vitality, which is stories about the meetings and what's going on there. Clearly define our spiritual principles. That means putting our shared beliefs into a short and easy to understand statement. And this may have been the most difficult because we as Quakers often have trouble defining ourselves. And be a source of information for our quarter community. We wanted the website to be a place where quarter friends could find out when committee meetings were being held and when and where the next quarterly meeting was, and to have access to quarterly meeting documents and handbooks. And you need to develop a clear visual message. Now, I don't mind using the marketing term branding, which is defined as the promotion of a particular product or company by means of advertising and distinctive design. Quakers can be a bit squeamish with equating outreach with marketing. To me, it's just a matter of semantics. And I think it helps with name recognition. Quakers in Great Britain branded themselves. Our yearly meeting has branded itself. Heck, Bucks Quarter has branded themselves. Just think about it. It isn't necessary, but it can't hurt. And you also need to develop a clear written message. Now, this can be really challenging because when you ask 5 friends to tell you what Quakers believe, you will get 7 answers. So when you decide to write about what Quakers believe, remember to frame it in the positive. We often describe Quakers in terms of what we don't do rather than what we do do. So here's what we came up for the Bucks Quarter website. That there is that of God in everyone, and each person is capable of a direct and unmediated experience of the Spirit. This inward experience of God transforms us and leads us into outward expressions of faithful living, witness, and action. Our understanding and experience of God's truth is continuing and ongoing and is nurtured and enlarged by being in community with one another. This is something I wrote by scouring the internet and asking what a Quaker believes and then meshing it into this. Try not to use Quaker jargon in your messaging. I know it's hard to remember that some of the words and phrases we use all the time can be confusing for newcomers. Even when you invite someone to come to meeting, we understand that to mean meeting for worship. To a non-Quaker, it might mean, oh, they want me to come to a business meeting? Monthly meetings, also a really confusing term. People think you only meet once a month, not every Sunday. And first day school. No one really knows that first day school, what first day school means outside of Quaker circles. Most other Christian religions call it Sunday school. And even the term worship can be problematic for the uninitiated to understand. Most people will say, oh, it's a church service, right? So that's a little more generic. But we do tend to use these because we really, we really like our jargon. Um, and it's really hard to get away from it. Next part is creating and designing your communications. So you've looked inward and you've decided it's time to do outreach, and you've looked outward and you have an outreach team in place and a plan. Now it's time to get down to the nitty-gritty of designing your outreach materials. First, you need to decide whether you think you can get a volunteer to do the design or whether it would be better to hire a professional. Now I know Quaker meetings are largely run by volunteers. Some even have volunteers to do work like cleaning the meeting house or cutting the grass. Historically, Quakers prefer to do things themselves. This is one of those, that's the way we've always done it scenarios that I talked about in the beginning. If your meeting is lucky enough to have someone with graphic design experience, great. Tap them for their experience. If you have someone who's enthusiastic about learning design, learning web design, there are plenty of free online design tools you can use. So if you have an Apple computer, it has a page layout application called Pages. I use it every month to do our newsletter. And you can do basic photo manipulation in the application preview. So you don't have to go and buy expensive design software. And many people use the online design tool Canva. I haven't tried that yet, but it's on my list. And you can go to just about any online printing company and they will design a project for you. So you have lots of options. However, there might be some projects where it might benefit the meeting to hire a professional. So one of the factors in that decision is time commitment. Let's face it, most of the volunteers at your meetings are wearing many hats and serving on many committees. Burnout's common. And if someone, however eager, wants to learn a new skill like web design, and they already have a lot on their plate, it may fall low on their priority list. So by hiring someone, you ensure that the project gets done in a timely manner. The flip side, of course, is the cost. But when Bucks Quarter decided to hire a professional to redesign our website, I looked at it as an investment in our future. So with my limited skill set in web design, I knew that I could learn to update it and maintain it, but not design one that would be informative and attractive. So what makes a design informative and attractive? Good graphic design combines creativity with function. It's not just about looking attractive, but about communicating effectively. So we're going to talk about a few key elements that make up good design. But my basic rule of thumb is keep it simple. A simple design is easier to understand, and it's more likely to make a lasting impression. What do I mean by simple? I mean getting across one strong idea instead of incorporating many. Less is more. Quality over quantity. Community, social justice, faith, join us. Clear and to the point. Now, you can also keep it simple by using pictures. There's a reason for the old adage, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And this is one of our outreach cards that has been a real big hit. So pictures make an instant impression and affect people on an emotional level. Words should be kept to a minimum, but have maximum impact. Edit your message down to its essence and people remember it. Let's talk about a few of the elements that make up good graphic design. Now, this isn't everything. This is just a few because we'd be here till 10 o'clock if we went through everything. So let's talk about lines. In your design, you can use lines to guide the eyes, to separate sections, to create textures, or to suggest movement. Think of them as visual pathways. They can lead, connect, divide, they can decorate, they can be straight, crooked, horizontal, vertical, thick, thin, squiggly. So I often use lines when I'm outlining photos because it makes them look more professional and it makes them stand out from the background more. Color. Color draws attention, it sets mood, and it creates hierarchy. So by paying attention to the colors you use, you ensure that your designs feel balanced and intentional. And you may not realize how much color conveys information and influences your perceptions. For example, have you ever wondered why the color red is so noticeable? Well, supposedly, it's because thousands of years ago, red was mostly known as the color of blood, which meant it was the color most associated with injury, danger, or death. So, whenever our ancestors saw this color, it basically told them to pay attention, often because something dangerous was nearby. And to this day, that instinct has stuck with us, which is why red is the color most often used for stoplights and traffic signs. Maybe apocryphal, but it makes sense. And contrasting colors, they can capture attention and really improve readability. Referring to a color wheel like this can really help you with deciding which colors to use and the impression that you want to convey. And this is really easily just resourced out on the internet. So white space or any kind of space is the area around and between your graphic elements. Effective use of space prevents clutter. It emphasizes important content. It improves readability and makes your design look more professional. And it allows the most important parts of your design to stand out and capture the viewer's attention more effectively. And it also allows the eyes to have space to rest between the graphic elements. So if you look at these two layouts, one is very calming, the one that's good harmony. It makes sense, it's even. The bad harmony, you're like, what am I missing? My eye doesn't know where to go. So it is really, really important to make sure that your design has sufficient white space in it. Now let's talk a little bit about typography. Choosing the right font is important because fonts shape how a message is perceived by combining function with personality. Your choice of font affects readability and mood. It can convey key information and create a consistent brand identity. It can mean the difference between looking professional or not. You should never underestimate the power of a font. So fonts are generally divided into two categories, serif and sans serif. Serif fonts have small decorative strokes or feet at the end of their letters. So on the left are some examples of serif fonts, Cambria, Garamond, Times New Roman, Spectral. So these little serifs give detail to the text and it gives it a more traditional and formal look. And these are often used in books, newspapers, and it really does improve the readability of text. Look in a book, they will be using a serif font. So sans serif fonts, they don't have these extra strokes, and making them appear more clean, more modern, and more minimalist. And so examples are there on the right: Helvetica, Arial, my favorite, Calibri. So these are used a lot in advertising because they're simple and they're easy to read. But choosing which font to use in your design can feel really overwhelming because there's hundreds, thousands of fonts to choose from. Designers typically use a combination of fonts, like a bold font for a header or a clear font for the body text, to create a style that guides the viewer's eyes. So when you are choosing a typeface, you want to consider some of the following. You definitely want to limit the number of fonts. A general rule is to use 1 or 2 fonts per design to avoid chaotic or an unprofessional, and let me stress, unprofessional appearance. Everybody wants to use the type fonts because they're so pretty, but it just really makes it look pretty messy. Size. It's really important to pay attention if you're designing outdoor signage, like a banner. If your meeting house is on a busy road with traffic going by at 45, 50 miles an hour, you're going to need to use a larger font on your signage than a meeting house that's on a city street where the speed limit might be 25. What's the purpose of your font? For headlines, you should choose bold, distinctive, or a decorative font to grab the attention. For body text, opt for clear, readable fonts. Now, for display or just like a single logo, you can use one of those fancier fonts, but it should be used sparingly and just for like a small amount of text, or like I said, for a logo. And the last thing you want to pay attention to is scale, proportion, and balance. So when you pay attention to scale when you want to create emphasis. Bigger elements attract more attention. So make sure all parts of your design are proportional, because proportionality and consistency give projects a feeling of harmony and they're easier on the eye. And make sure that the visual weight of your piece is balanced across the layout. I'm sure you all looked at this. You will read this first is exactly where your eye goes. And that's what this designer wanted. We're going to wrap the workshop up by talking about implementation and getting your message out. So, like Lanza said, this really is another entire workshop. I'm really kind of doing the first one as an overview of so many things that we could be talking about. So I know I'm giving you a lot of information in a short period of time. So I'm just going to give you an overview of some of the ways to get your newly designed messages out to your communities. So, meeting house signage. How prominent is your signage in front of your meeting? Quaker signage historically has been small, not designed to attract attention or the public. Historically, it was used by other Quakers to find your meeting house to attend a committee meeting or quarterly meeting. And because of our minimal signage and simple buildings, many people have passed our meeting houses for years and did not know that it was a Quaker meeting house. Many just didn't even know they existed. They blended right into the landscape. So it's time to stop hiding our light under a bushel, friends. Modern signage lets passerbys know that we are alive and well and not just historical buildings. And I'm going to pause for a minute. Which sign do y'all like better? Just call it out. 1 for Doylestown, 2 for Middletown, or 3 for Makefield. Which do you like?
2.
2.
Absolutely. Isn't that a great sign? I love that sign. I was just there last night, and you can see that from way down the road. They're on a busy street that runs about 40, 45 miles an hour. You can see it, you know it, and it's really the best one. Some of the other ones, Doylestown, you can see, well, they're walking. That's a walking. And Makefield, I think it's a little light. Lonza, did you want to?
No, I just think that I know that everybody deals with this stuff. So if you could just, maybe somebody doesn't like green, so they wouldn't have picked that. So tell us why that works in your, like, why you so adamant that that is the one? Please give us the pointers.
Well, I think, first of all, it's a solid color and it could be anything, but what I like is the lighter type on a darker background. I think it stands out more. I like the 453 at the top because everybody's going to a place generally by their GPS and they feel very confident. Oh, there's 453. It's easy. It doesn't just say Middletown Friends Meeting. And it uses very few words. And it has Quaker as the biggest word. So those really why I like the shape of it. I think it's eye catching. Let's talk about banners. Banners are a great way to let people know that your meeting is active and alive. And it's an opportunity to communicate your values. Remember, pay attention to the font size based on the type of traffic that passes your meeting. And changing banners periodically will catch the attention of people passing by. And these are a series of banners that are rotating around among the meetings at Bucks Quarter right now. We have two of each one because we have 14 meetings, and every 2 months they get a new banner. And that way they can give their message out to the world. And it's always just a little different because you never know who the passerby, what will resonate with someone passing by. Social media. Well, there we go, another whole workshop. Many people find us on the internet by Googling, what's a Quaker? Or find Quakers near me. And that's why, as we said, an attractive and up to date website really is so important. Now, y'all know the other outlets: Facebook, Instagram, X, formerly Twitter, and YouTube. Blue Sky is another platform that I'm hearing more and more about that I really need to explore. And I'll get back to you on that one. Printed pamphlets and handouts. So I find these are really helpful for first time visitors. If someone arrives right as meeting for worship is about to start, a greeter, because y'all have greeters, can quickly hand them a card with information about what to expect at their first Quaker meeting. And it can also include general meeting protocol, like, can I get up and go to the bathroom? What do I do if my kid is making a lot of noise? Now, this is the one piece where I think it's okay to use more words than pictures. And this is a card that Newtown Meeting developed, gosh, years ago. We still give them out. Newspapers. Yep, there are still real paper newspapers out there. Some are free, some you have to pay for stories or advertising. For many years, Bucks Quarter ran a monthly ad in a local Quaker owned publication, and it really did produce phone calls. I got phone calls all the time. And here's some examples of some of the ads we did. And you see, we kept a theme. You might be a Quaker if, and then there's a little query, and then come visit, website, here's all the meetings and the contact information. So again, tried to keep it simple. And since the paper was black and white, because we didn't want to pay for color, so it still shows up very well. There are online publications. So many communities have a local patch where you can submit stories for free and graphics for upcoming events at your meeting. And you can just try Googling online news near me to find more in your area. That's how I found some of these. I know Philly Burbs, but I didn't know Philly Voice or Spotlight PA. I just Googled it. So there's things out there that we're not aware of. The last one, and again, we talked about this a little bit, is community events. Participating with a tent or a table where you can hand out your newly designed outreach materials. And it's a great way to let people in your community know that local Quakers are alive and well and active in making a difference. So this is what we at Bucks Quarter called Quaker Table in a Box. And we have two of these, and we use them when we participate in events. So I think this one was last year's historic Bristol Day. But you see, it's very colorful, And I won't even get into the game that we play, which was, I think that one was Pick the Quaker. We have a new game right now called Invented by a Quaker or Not. And I think I spoke to 150 people um, at the Peace Fair this past weekend. Um, and it was just a way to engage people in conversation. So it was a lot of fun. Okay, so we've come to the end of First Impressions Matter. Now, I've had you be introspective and you've looked forward, you formed a plan, and now you can implement that plan and hopefully try to go your meetings. And I hope you've learned something. Like, look at that heading. Really isn't the right font to use, is it? There we go.
It's
This one is
appropriate for
so much
Halloween
better.
upcoming.
This one is so much better, and it's really consistent with the whole presentation that I gave. So.